What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing podcast. This is the show where we teach you to make massive income, not just passive income with your real estate investing business. On these Wednesday shows, we have the Mike and Dan show where I, Mike DeHaan, here with my co-host Dan Austin, talk about real estate investing, business, and whatever else we feel like for the week. And so we have, I guess, some good catching up to do, Dan, because over the last week, we were both busy doing things that weren't directly involved in our businesses, I guess. You were,
dude.
Yeah, you were definitely more, I mean, I was on vacation, but you were at a conference, which we'll dive into down in Austin. But yeah, quick rehash, I guess, of my vacation stuff that I did is I went up to the Northeast, spent some time in DC and then also in New York City, which I've never been to before. And I will say, coming from the West Coast, like, big fan. New York City was great. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it a lot. Like,
what
a lot
part of
more
the
than
town
I
did you
was
like?
going to.
City? Were you like Manhattan area or just kind of all over?
We stayed in Manhattan. We stayed at a hotel that was like right off Times Square, like literally a block, which was pretty cool. And we realized very, very, very quickly the insane amount of stuff that there is to do there.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. Like, the city doesn't sleep.
It was unbelievable, dude. Like, I would say, I've traveled a lot. I would say out of most cities I've been to, that, like, in fact, out of all the cities I've been to, which I've been to, Tokyo, London, Paris, Rome, you name like a random large city, I've been to most of them. And there might be more to do there than any other city that I've been to. Like, honestly,
that's impressive,
dude. It's insane.
Sure, you say that. That's crazy.
Like we were there for 4 whole days. We did like all the tourist things that we like sort of knew about initially, and then we very quickly realized how much more there was. And I guess we didn't even do like all the tour stuff. Like, we didn't like take the boat out of the Statue of Liberty or go to Ellis Island or do all those sort of things. But we went to like 9/11 Memorial, went and saw all the main monuments, walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, like did a lot of that stuff. And there's just so much. It's such like a tight area, dude. It's crazy.
Right.
And the other thing too, that was interesting for me, that I don't know if this is like a new thing or maybe I'm just sort of desensitized to it, but a lot of the, I would say, like sort of like rumors or sort of knocks on New York City that I've heard from people, I didn't think were like that bad. Like, people there were generally very friendly, honestly. I've always heard that people in the Northeast can be a little bit abrasive. I thought people there, from my experience, were a lot nicer than when I've been in like Seattle or some of the other cities.
Bruh.
Right?
Yeah. I've got a thing we'll talk about here in a minute, and I think I know why. So keep going though.
They're great. Like, the city, like, it was dirty for sure, but it wasn't like
every big city.
It's like every big city. Like, it wasn't like over the top. Like, I feel like most European cities I've been to, like London and Paris, are significantly more dirty. The homeless population wasn't out of control. Like, you definitely saw them around and you saw people doing stuff, but it wasn't like a lot of other cities that I've been to around the world. And something that I noticed right away too, which was very interesting, and this really stood out to me, just showing how healthy that city generally is regardless of where you were in the town, and we did a huge amount of Manhattan, I would say that like on the ground floor, almost every single spot was filled with like some kind of business, right? So you saw very few vacancies compared to like, you go Northwest cities right now, you see tons of vacancies because of the homeless issues. Even like down in Austin, you'd see like a lot more vacancies in like the downtown core.
Austin's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's a little bit, but like this, like everything, every nook and cranny had some kind of restaurant or business in it. Like, the only vacancies you saw were some of like the larger like storefronts, because like, freaking Nordstrom's used to be there or whatever, and they like moved out. But everything else, there was like just so much life, which was really cool. And I just felt like it was somewhere that I can see why people enjoy living there, and why that like people make that their entire identity, because it would be very easy to do so, because there's like so much that you can like.
Well, there's so much diversity there, and like so much just things to do that you have probably what most every other major city in the United States has, but you have it there.
Yeah, you have
it's
it.
Like you have this multicultural chasm of just stuff.
Yeah, and not only that, but you have whatever you could possibly want within 10 blocks of you at all times.
Yeah. That's kind of what I've heard too, is like, I've had some friends that live there and stuff. Is like, you don't need to really leave like your just few block radius if you live there, especially in Manhattan, because like everything you could possibly need, you can walk to, and it's just right there. Yeah.
Like every kind of restaurant, every sort of like activity you want to do, whether you want to like play golf, right? You could go play the digital golf. The golf courses across the way aren't too far away. If you want to go swimming, you want to go to the gym, you want to like go out and have drinks, whatever you want to do, you can do all of it in like a very tight area. But no, it was cool. I really enjoyed it. And I got a chance to meet up with a couple of our scale members that live out on the New Jersey side, which is always fun. It's one of the big perks of traveling in general. And all in all, I don't know if you're live somewhere in the country, you've never been up there, I would recommend checking it out because it's definitely, I would say it is like the epitome of like what people view America as, like
the Big Apple.
Totally, 100%. Yeah. So, yeah, it was good. And then you were at what they call Austin Entrepreneurial Summit.
Yeah, AES. Yeah, I will say that's the first time I've spent any significant time in downtown Austin in this last decade, and not that impressed with the city. It's just reminded me of Seattle or any other big city that has sidewalks with piss and homeless people everywhere. But that's funny. Food is amazing. And I was staying like down in the heart, like in the Hilton. So it's kind of like, obviously Austin's a big city. I didn't get out much because we were pretty busy meeting, networking, and then just attending the event. But food was definitely awesome. 6th Street reminded me of just a smaller Bourbon Street that smelled and was sticky. But, you know, I'm sure it's good. I wasn't there for the nightlife, so I can't speak to that part of it.
They got good nightlife in Austin. And I'll say it's unfortunate that you only were downtown because Austin is an awesome city. Like,
I believe it. I was in like a half-mile radius of my hotel. So I didn't have time to go anywhere else. But yeah, no, it was good. It was a good event to go to. There was it was an interesting mix of people because at a normal, like typical GoBundance events closed to like the GoBundance members, you get kind of like you have the, you know, kind of the GoBundance like big players that everybody knows, like big brand names. And then you have just like all of us and everybody else. And they're kind of like on a similar trajectory with a few people that kind of do different things. There you had the younger crowd, like the Emerge crowd, which was really cool getting to interact with those folks. I've met a lot of great Emerge members, so I had a ton of fun there. And they're always doing something super innovative because a lot of them are kind of like figuring out where they're going and what they're doing. And most of them are realizing real estate's a tough game. And so they're maybe doing something unique within that, or they're doing something totally different. So it's really cool with them. But then there are some players like, I sat next to a couple folks, different people that were guests. One of the ladies sold a hard money lending company. This was fascinating. She sold her hard money lending company for $10 million and then doubled down, and they built a software that helps. It's for like underwriting like properties and loans for lending companies. And then they sold that to like a conglomerate owned by like Realtor.com, Zillow, and some other company. So they sold that software. And then she's just been investing in a ton of private equity. So, multi 8-figure net worth that was, I would have never interacted because she was pretty much all business. Yeah. And a lot of times most GoBundance guys happen to be focused, at least at that point in time when they joined GoBundance, in real estate. So that was cool. A very diverse crowd of people. Speakers were cool. Codie Sanchez was there. She's an amazing speaker. I don't really know all the stuff she talked about because I didn't care. I was just so impressed with her ability to speak. But she did talk about this concept of a flywheel and how she sees her businesses as this like giant flywheel, and everything she's doing is to keep this flywheel moving. So you see all of her like Instagram, like the middle of her flywheel is like YouTube, Instagram, all of her social media. And then on the outside, think of kind of like a Venn diagram spinning around the flywheel. She has like her mastermind group, which she's like, I don't make any money on that. Don't make money. That's not the point of it. She's like, I lose money on that. I lose money on my social media, all that stuff. And you know how it is. You're putting content together. It costs money. All that production is part of her flywheel spinning it. And then the main focus is for her to build her small, boring business private equity fund, right? So she has that. And then she has like another fund that she raises to do startup investments. So she's all about business acquisitions, as we all know, but you see all the other crap she's doing is just to keep that flywheel spinning so she can buy more businesses. Yeah. So something good to think about as you're building a business. Even if you think about that business as a singular entity, as your single flywheel, what are you doing inside of that business that's even spinning your flywheel? If it's not spinning your flywheel, why the fuck are you doing it?
Yeah. And that's like the next level of entrepreneurship, right? Is when you're starting to like figure out, it's operating. You're trying to figure out how do you really grow that, which is a hard thing to sort of determine, because when you reach that, it's very individualistic. like you really need to look at internally what your goals are. And that's something that we're going to be chatting about here in the next couple of days or so. But no, that's cool that you got to see her speak on like a long format like that, because she's really, really sharp. Like I only got to see her speak for about 10 minutes when I was at Aaron and Wichita's event last fall. And she came by this restaurant that Aaron had booked out for us to finish the event at.
Yeah.
And she just sort of spoke on the cuff for 10 minutes, and such a well-spoken person. Like you can see very quickly why she does well. And it's not like just because she's a, chick that's on stage, like it sometimes feels like.
Yeah. No, I immediately was like, she could have stayed doing what she was at Goldman Sachs and she would be very successful investment banker or private equity. I don't know what she did there, but like whatever she's going to do in life, she'd be extremely talented. So that was super impressive. David Osborn spoke. For those that don't know who he is, he's like one of the founders of GoBundance. He's a big Keller Williams guy, has a ton. I don't even know how much of Keller. I didn't realize he had actually a business partner in Keller Williams as well. So really? he mentioned that. So he has that, but then he has a family office, where his wealth is being invested, and he's lots of stuff.
He's worth a couple $100 million, I think, at this
point.
Worth
a couple $100 million. He will definitely be worth $1 billion. If you think about it, not too long ago, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, he's worth 40 million, and now he's worth over 200. And so it's snowballing at this point. But he had some good stuff, and you and I talk about this with like our scale community when it's around like hiring and stuff. One of the cool things he talked about in this, he said, 5 direct reports is about and I've heard this statistic separately with different numbers, but like 5 direct reports is about the max he wants. And that's the max effectiveness for a person to really have a good, being able to pour back into these people and then being able to perform at that level because of that. And that he wants each of those people to make about $1 million a year. Because his logic is if they're making $1 million a year, they're not the kind of people that you have to call to get them out of bed in the morning. They're self-motivated, right? And the same thing goes when you're talking about like if you're trying to scale your off-market business here, you're doing wholesaling and all that. You have to, like, people struggle with hiring, but and one thing he mentioned about this, like, you have to set a vision big enough that there's room for those people to come into and have their own vision, right? That they can see themselves within you. So think about this. If you have a vision that you're like, I just want to make like $200,000 a year in my wholesale business, but I can't find a good sales guy, and I want to pay them, $36,000, $50,000 a year. Like, you're going to get a $36,000, $50,000 salesperson. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're going to see the vision of you making 200,000, and they're going to automatically step that back to what they're going to be making. And that's just what you're going to get. I'm not saying you need to have a David Osborn, I'm going to have 5 people making $1 million each kind of setup, but think about that when you're setting the vision for your company and having the courage, as David would say, having the courage to believe in that and to put that out in the world so that people can come in and work and live within that vision and believe in you. And then you can start getting this top talent, and the top talent is the key. But you can't go I hear this a lot of times with people that are kind of naive in the wholesale off-market real estate space, is like, for a good salesperson, you need like them to be making $200,000 to $300,000 a year. And I 100% agree with that. There's not that many salespeople out in the world making $200,000, $300,000 a year. I know a ton of salespeople. That is a tough barrier to get to. And those salespeople are usually working for well-established companies that have a massive vision. So sure, thank you for saying that. How the fuck do I get a $200,000 to $300,000 salesman as my acquisition manager in buttfuck Midwest?
Yeah,
it's really hard.
You don't.
So you need to find somebody that fits into your business, into your vision, and that can excel within that, like that really aligns with it. And you got to take time to find the person. But once you do, you will know. And that's why we always say, you just put something out there, practice hiring people. And then when you find the person you can't live without, even if you don't need them yet, you're going to hire them because they will take your business to the next level, whatever that next level is.
Yeah. I mean, and on that note too, like if you want to just have a business where you make $200,000, $300,000 a year, and that's kind of your goal, that's fine. You just can't expect to hire $1 million talent if that's going to be your ceiling.
Totally.
Right.
And don't be discouraged that you can. Because that's not where your vision is.
Just understand that's the trade-off that you're going to get, right? Is if you have the people that come in and they want to be making that same amount of money themselves, they're not going to work for you. They're going to go and they're going to start their own business, or they're going to go and work for somebody larger that can pay them more.
Totally. So I thought there was a lot to do with David on that topic. That was good. The last point I'll talk before we can pivot is the actual major learning opportunity I had was actually before the event, before I even left Spokane. So I'm at the airport, and as you know, like the airport can be such a fun time, right? Like there's just so much shit to do, and people are always in such a good mood.
And Spokane Airport, especially, man, it just
dude. You know wwhat's trash about Spokane Airport is they took out all the Starbucks.
Yeah, I know they put in
Pete's,
but
trash.
They I thought they were putting Tom's Hammer.
No, they're all Pete's.
They're all Pete's. That sucks.
Yeah,
because the whole thing was supposed to be Spokane companies now, but Pete's isn't Spokane. Isn't that a Seattle company?
I think it is. Yeah, it's maybe I don't know. It's semi-local, right? Anyways, that wasn't my point. Sorry. No, so I was going through TSA, and I was going through the Delta terminal. So that's like the little bit bigger area, as you know. Sorry if you don't know Spokane Airport. You're just believe me. It's like a smaller but medium-sized security area.
It's like an airport with 20 gates. That's what it is.
So, anyways, so I'm going through that, and there's not a lot of people there. Like it was like mid-morning, so there was the early morning flight rush was gone. And I was just standing there. There's like 3 people in front of me and a few people behind me. There's like this older couple behind me. And I was like, man, every single TSA agent here is like bubbly and having a good time. And I noticed like the leader, the guy that was like walking around, and I was like, he is like super positive. And I was like, that I was having that thought as I was going through security. I was like, that single person can totally change the culture and the dynamics around a group of people, even if it's just in the moment. Maybe all those 5 other TSA agents are curmudgeons, but when he's around, they're positive, right? And so I was like that. I just was kind of making that observation. I was like, that's interesting because as you and I know, like, having an off day or just kind of like not being as engaged, you can totally change the dynamic of a room, especially as the leader. Mm-hmm. And so then that nice, bubbly, positive TSA manager guy calls the person. I'm waiting to get my bag out of the carousel thing or the security thing. This older guy comes through, and the TSA agent's like, hey, you got to take your shoes off. And the guy bends down. He's like, unless you're 75. And the guy's like, no, sorry, I'm 72. And the guy looks up and he's like, well, I have TSA pre-check. So why are, like, kind of with an attitude, like, why are you making me take my shoes off anyways? And the guy's like, oh, you are? He's like, where's your purple card? And because at our airport, they still hand you the card that says TSA pre-check on it. And the guy's like, oh, it's in the bin. And he's like, oh, I don't know that you're pre-check. So you got to hold that as you go through the gate. Like the guy was being super nice about it. And he's like, oh, well, I think you should know, whatever. Kind of gives him some lip, total bad attitude. And then husband and wife get through it. And they're like, God, I cannot believe these TSA agents. This is so ridiculous. And immediately I was so turned off. I was like, this is what I thought. I was like, if you show up expecting TSA to be a bad experience, guess what? It's going to be a bad experience. It's going to be a shit experience. Towards the end of the event, one of the founders of GoAbundance, Rock Thomas, or one of the folks that helped grow GoAbundance anyways, he's like, a shit attitude is just a shit magnet for shit, right? So if you have a shit attitude, you're just going to be a shit magnet and shitty things are going to happen to you. And that tied the beginning of the event to the end of the event, just tied it together. I was like, that is so true though. And like when you're having a bad day, putting a smile on and just being optimistic will make everything work so much better. And in this business, Mike, you and I know, like there's times where, it's just shit is you're a shit magnet and shit just seems to get worse. You have closings falling off. You have all these things that can go work against you. But honestly, just putting a smile on and going with it, having optimism is going to be so much better than, oh, this is going to suck. So now it does suck.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the old saying, the one thing you can control is your attitude.
Yes.
Right. Like 100%. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's such an important thing to keep in mind, and I kind of like the way that you tied that into, like your everyday life as well as like the business side of it, because, very rarely are you going to find somebody that is like that with their everyday life that isn't like that at work. Right. And like vice versa. You're very, very rarely going to find someone that's like has a bad attitude at work, but doesn't outside of it. And so It really becomes like a lifestyle, like a mindset shift, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. And I found it to be a very important, like having that positive mental attitude just for your own sanity. I do think it's okay to vent and talk shit. I mean, that's what me and you do half the time when we're together. We're like, man, can you believe this bullshit's happening? But then when you go back out in the world, you got that off your chest. Go back on the world. Don't freaking yell at the TSA agent of your life, like whoever that is. Maybe that, if you're beating your spouse and you're a weirdo like that, like stop doing that. That's not good for many reasons. But like people, and I mean that, I meant to say that came out wrong. Like a lot of times people come home from the end of the day, like, and they verbally like shit on their spouse. And so their spouse gets like the shit of your day. And that's not good. And if that's your kids, or if that's your coworkers or your employees or the people you work with, because you see it all the time. And I guess one thing I want to like challenge myself with is when I see somebody else having a bad day, is just being like, hey, they're having a bad day. Doesn't make my day bad, and doesn't mean I need to like say shit about it. I can just be like, you know what, put a smile on, work with them, get it done.
Yeah. And also too, just on that note, to wrap that up, I hate when people, when they have like kind of bad attitudes and everyone goes, oh, well, you don't know like what they're going through and different things. I'm like, that's true. But I would say 99% of the time, what people are going through is 100% under their control. You know, every now and then, like, you know, their dad just died, or like they just found out someone has cancer, or there's something terrible that's happened. But that is not every day. Yeah. For most people. And when you have these people that are just like pricks for years, it's because they're assholes and they need to figure their shit out.
Totally. They got to figure it out. Yeah. It's like everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own story. Things in life, you know, they do happen, but that's not every day. Yeah. And by you just being an asshole, because there are people like we're working with that closing attorney that you and I both know. And I told you going into it, I was like, this lady is not, she's so abrasive.
She's a
like,
piece of work. Yeah.
She's a piece of work. And I've dealt with her several times and it's never good. And like, I'm just gonna take the high road, be nice about it, figure it out. Like, I know how that person's going to work. I wish they didn't work that way, but I can at least maybe show it more positive and make it an easier experience, better experience for me.
Just kill it with kindness.
Kill it with kindness.
You know, and also to typically find that if you do kill people with kindness like that, you will disarm them to a point that they might not know how to react, which can end up being in your favor as well. A lot of times, totally. Especially we see this a lot with sellers and Great stuff point. Too. When sellers get real nasty with you, is like, if you just be over the top nice about it and you just acknowledge that something was weird or uncomfortable, or you did make a mistake. Sure, they might be super abrasive still. It's like, or they might be embarrassed by the fact they reacted in such a negative way, and it can completely turn the conversation around, which we've had happen a lot of times.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's good.
But, no, cool. So I guess the number, like the biggest sort of like takeaway that you have, or like the number one thing, like if you had 2 minutes in an Uber to tell the Uber driver about the biggest lesson you just learned, what would be the one thing that stuck with you the most out of all that?
Yeah, the one that I would share that I would share broadly to people is clarity. That was a theme for me, to gain clarity, and it always is. We should always be gaining clarity, but like gaining clarity in where you're going and why you're doing things is so important. It's very easy in the day-to-day to lose clarity and to lose vision, and it's okay to revisit and readjust as you go. And that was like the big theme I picked up, honestly, from all the speakers. And I think it's because there are some things in our business and in my life that I need to gain clarity. And as I knew that, I saw the theme going through all the speakers and all the people I was networking with. Honestly, like, I found some folks that I needed to meet that I didn't know yet, which was fantastic. And then other people, I'm hoping, because I got grabbed a lot. There's a lot of CK listeners out there. So if you're at the event and you talk to me, awesome. I really do appreciate that. Anytime you see Mike and I out in the wild, grab us. We always love chatting with you. But I'm hoping that I was that person for a few people as well. So
that's cool. Yeah, it sounds like it was a really good event. Hopefully they do more like that, because that was the first one that GoBundance has done that they opened to the public. Right. And it sounds like it was well received too, and they had a good lineup. So
I will say this, so to finish that out, because I really appreciate you bringing that up. So I brought one of our business partners down there, Codie, who we're just starting up some operations here in Spokane with, and he's been to other real estate events, in particular, what is it? TTP or whatever they call that event, that
Brent Daniels event. Yeah.
He used that as an example, not to shit on Brent or anything like that, because I do think me and you should probably go to that event one of these days. But basically that, actually it wasn't just him, it was a few other people that brought not that example up, but this example, that it was the first time they'd ever been to an event where they can immediately be vulnerable and share their biggest weaknesses and biggest problems. And it wasn't just a big dick measuring contest about how well your business is doing, but then everybody in the back of their minds like, dude, I am sucking ass right now.
Yeah. That's interesting. Do you think that's because that's kind of like the GoBundance Foundation, or is that because it's like entrepreneurially driven?
I think it's because of the GoBundance. I think it's the GoBundance thing, because I've been to not many, but I've been to other conferences or other meetups with real estate people and other things. And I think it has a lot to do with the way GoBundance, because there were GoBundance members mingled in there. There were Emerge members in there. And a lot of the people that said that were guests.
Sure.
That said that, made that comment. Like, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I typically feel like the amount of like one-upping that there is inversely related to like the quality of the people that are there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So like the more one-upping there is, the lower the quality of members, because everyone's there is insecure. And it's like the one thing like that they're going to go to in their life, and they just feel like they need to flex on people for some reason.
Yeah. It's so odd. Or they don't have like a long-term vision. And I also think because that's like part of the GoBundance like mindset and the pillars that they live by, or that, you know, folks of us that are in GoBundance live by, that it draws that type of person in. Because there's some big players out there that you and I know, or that even if we loosely know that they're not in GoBundance, you think they would be, but they're not. And there's a reason why. Yeah. Because those values, they don't align with them. They're not ready to be true, honest. Maybe there's something that they don't like in the pillars, I guess, the different pillars, the 6 pillars, 6 gardens of life. But like, there's a reason you're kind of like, I wonder why.
Yeah, there's a huge push towards like the ethical side of business and like the whole holistic lifestyle around it as well. Yeah, but no, that's cool though. I mean, I think that a big part of that too is helped that when you do have entrepreneurs that are operators, right? I would say like regardless of scale, they have chosen the entrepreneurial lifestyle. Right. You immediately have a relationship with that person, kind of like you do, honestly, with like a sports fan, right? Like if you go to, you're in like a random place and you find that someone like likes the same team as you, and you now have something in common with that person. Right. Even though they've had season tickets for 15 years and they've gone to every single game, and you've been to one game in your life, you're a different caliber of fan, but you still have like that same similar interest. And with entrepreneurs, I find that carries as well, whether you have a $10 million company or you have like a local coffee shop. You still have a lot of the same struggles. You've still chosen to live a lifestyle that is against the norm of what most people have chosen to do. Totally. And there's like this game recognizes game thing that goes on, you know, and you can have similar conversations. You can provide constructive feedback or thoughts to each other. And it's a hard thing to describe for people that have not sort of gone through that yet, but it's super, super valuable. And I think that GoBundance has done a really good job sort of enforcing that. And it sounds like they carried that with this event as well, which is really cool. Yeah, they did. So I would definitely highly recommend, if somebody didn't go this year or you want to go next year, like do it. Yeah. It's worth it. It was only like, I don't know, $1,400 for guests, I think. It's not bad. Not bad at all. I mean, that you can't complain about that. Like for what you're getting, for the speakers you were getting to see, if you care about the speakers and then the people around there. And I would highly encourage any event you go to, but definitely if you're going to go to like a guest event or as a guest to a GoBundance event, like the people there are where all the value is at. 100% the value. Every person I had an interaction with outside of the speakers, I gained something from, and I hope I gave them something, because that's where honestly all of the value is at. And I think every GoBundance member would tell you that. Well, not every, but most fun one. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, we're at about the 28-minute mark. Is there anything else you want to dive into, or should we just call it there?
I don't know. I'm good to call it.
Sure. Cool. Yeah. We got to record another one here because we're recording this late. We got to record another one here in like 2 days. Yeah. So we'll save all the business talk for that one.
We'll save the juice for that one. Yeah. We'll save the juice for next week.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, appreciate you all listening. If you guys are at the event and you saw Dan, seriously, we appreciate you guys reaching out. I know the couple of times that I've also been out in places and people have let me know they're listeners of the show. I don't know. It's kind of like a funny thing because I'm just a dude, but also it is nice to know that we are putting this out there and people are actually listening to it. So we really appreciate all of you guys that reached out to Dan while you were down there. And share it with your friends. If people know about the Collecting Keys podcast, it really helps us continue to grow and to make this all worthwhile to keep bringing content to you guys. And appreciate you listening. Talk to you guys next week.
See y'all.